Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves, no matter where they're at. A place where you can listen, learn and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Project podcast. We're so excited to have you here. The three of us have had most recently a wonderful weekend together. We were all brought together by a business community, which has turned out to be a lot more than that and has brought a lot of us together from all around the country and indeed online all around the world. And so we've had a weekend together, which was very special because for a lot of the time we live in quite different areas of Brisbane. So we don't get to catch up so much. That was really, really exciting for us to actually hang out together.
Yeah, it was really good to finally see everybody. Sucks that our Melbourne family couldn't come, but it was still good to get as many people together as possible.
It's great to hang out online, I think. And I think it's amazing, especially during COVID time. It was really good that we already had a community all around the world. And I know for a lot of our community that are in some countries that have really struggled, like Canada, for example, having that online base already has been massive for them, because I think during the issues that we've faced with everybody being in lockdown at various times, people have really struggled with that lack of community or feeling like they've lost community and loneliness. And mental health has become a huge issue. So today, I think we just wanted to kind of chat around that because we always knew that community was really important, but we could really, really feel it this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wanted to discuss a recent example that came up for me, even post obviously our little conference on the weekend. And community starts, I guess, just to give a bit of definition from my understanding too, community are the people that you surround yourself by. So it can be a business community, as in our example, who've now become a friends community. You know, you have your family community as well. And often, you know, people can feel disempowered or disconnected based on the people that they're spending time with. So I guess for me, the advantage of having this kind of conversation is really highlighting some examples of stories where community can serve you really well in supporting you and becoming the best version of yourself. But also conversely, community can be quite destructive too if you're spending time with people who aren't supporting you or helping you to be your best version of yourself too.
Really good point. I didn't think about that. And so I guess that's, something that we actually touched in our last episode that we had with, a few episodes ago, we had with Janet Testaz, where we were talking about, when you're trying to improve your health, the people that are around you may react to that and not want to do that. And then finding a group of people who have the same mindset as you do and have the same passions as you do to also, move towards improved health, as opposed to staying with people that may be wanting to hold you back in whatever that is, whatever space that might be for you.
Yeah, so I really love to raise this example that came up for me recently. So one of my daughter's friends gave my daughter a call, and she'd had a really confronting conversation with her parent, and the parent had basically told her she was fat and she was ugly, and everybody was saying the same things about her, and she needed to get off her ass and change her life. So from a mother's perspective, from a parent's perspective, I found that so confronting that a parent could say that to their child, one, but also from a community perspective, like this is this young person's community that's created the human being that she is today, and just really having an in-depth conversation with her about how communities can have a positive or negative impact on themselves, and I guess how empowered they are to either stay in that space should they choose to, or make a conscious choice to step away and find a community that actually supports and loves and honors and serves and uplifts. Because if it's a familial community and a lot of people feel, and particularly this young person, she feels compelled to stay in that space because they're her family, but it's incredibly destructive. And, she may not be ready yet to step away from that. And potentially sometime in the future, she may decide that her own journey is worth so much more than being bashed by that belief. But one of the biggest values that I've had from coming into this space with you two beautiful ladies is that I've come into this space where the whole person that I am is respected and loved and, valued, and the things that I bring to the table are valued. So, showing people that is actually possible and how that can actually change your life is really important.
One of the things I listened to actually on an Audible today was not necessarily having to, so exactly like what you were just saying, like this young woman, not having to leave that community, but if you can't, or if you don't want to, but trying to add as many more, we'll say more empowered or more friendly or more loving people into your circle. So that at least you're not shutting those people out. That parent is obviously someone special to them, someone that's a big part of their life, but just adding as many more positive influences, I guess, into the life can make at least a little bit of a shift for people.
Yeah, to balance it out. Because if that's all you're hearing, then why would you believe anything different?
Look, I don't know. I mean, I remember hearing the term that the 5 people you spend the most time with are the people that you become. And to me, I mean, that's resonated for a long time, and a real awareness around that. So those 5 people can be your family as well, Jess. And I don't know, maybe I've, reached my mid 40s. So my tolerance level for that kind of behavior is now non-existent, because I've stepped into this space where, like, what, I've grown up in that space too, where I consistently was looking for some sort of acknowledgement of my worth and what I had to offer and the things that I could contribute. And it just didn't come from certain areas of my life. And so that sense of self comes back to that as well. That now that I see this happening in this young girl as an example, I'm like, step away. Like, this person, the parent, doesn't have the right to project those beliefs onto this young person. And that's all it is. It's just a projection. And no doubt she's hurt people. So she's obviously living that feeling herself, the parent, but that doesn't give her the right to project that onto the child. And at the end of the day, from a community perspective, it doesn't have to be a forever thing. I'm not saying, block her off and never speak to her again, because it's a parent, right? But for your own self-protection, until you start to build that self-belief and courage and strength around having those conversations, sometimes you just need to give me some space.
Yeah. Remove yourself for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter has definitely done that with her dad. So the first time she did that, she was 12, where she refused to go back to dad's at all. And we tried for a little while back and forth, and she dug her heels in for a while. It was really difficult. And then rebuilt the relationship for a little while. And then again, when she was probably about 18, made an adult conscious decision that that person was not contributing to her life in any sort of positive way and was affecting her quite negatively, and kind of made an adult decision to step away. And that took a lot of bravery, because it hasn't been an easy journey at all, because there is a lot of family on that side too, right, that doesn't understand the background, that doesn't understand things that happened. And so it's a very brave journey. And I think a lot of kids go through that when they leave school too, because they've had this group of friends around them that very often are not necessarily friends. They're just people that you've been put together with for an extended period of time, but they're not your people. And so, I know when I left school, I only have, when I left school, there was like one person who remained my friend of all the groups that I was with, because they just simply were not my people. I was just with them there because they were there. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially when they, move back, go to university or college or whatever it is, and then just are like, nobody wants to be around me, whatever it might be. It's just, you just haven't found your people yet. You just have to find your tribe. They're there. You just need to look for them.
That's really a conversation I wish that I had heard, to be honest, because very same with me. I had, a pretty big group of friends in high school, and very quickly after, I only stayed in touch with one of them. And I always had this like, not necessarily a sad feeling. Cause like I, with what you said, like I knew they weren't my people necessarily, but it was, you know, you see those other people and they're like, they go home from university and hang out with all these friends. And I'm like, oh, I have one friend from high school that I'm really friends with. And, you know, they're at a different university, making all these new friends kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, wow, I don't have a lot of friends all of a sudden. So you go from having this group that you think is your group of friends, but like you said, they're just there because you're in the same classes together or whatever. And then you leave and it's like, oh, I don't really have any friends. I feel like I'm very lucky because I've had Ben for so long. He's been stuck with me for so long that I have always had
childhood
that.
Sweethearts, right? Like 14 or something.
Yeah, we met when we were 12 and we started dating when we were 14. So I've been lucky in that sense, but in a sense of like girlfriends, I haven't really ever had very many long-term girlfriends. You had that group in high school, then you had that group in university, but I never really stayed in contact with everyone because I was always on to the next thing or moving countries or, yeah. And it just became like a chore to try and stay connected with some of these people. And it's just always made me feel very, until I found our group, to be honest, very like, I'm okay at making friends, but I'm not good at keeping them.
Oh, I felt exactly the same. And
That's
I think that was, okay, so you and I did the same thing, right? We moved countries. So there was that little spoke in the wheel as well. But I think my deal too was that I was very closed off emotionally, like no vulnerability whatsoever, and incredibly shy. And I still am really kind of like a quiet person for the most part. And so I just found it really difficult. Like I would get to school with my little girl and all the mums were standing around talking and I would be on my way to work. So I didn't have time to stand around and talk. And I was kind of, they were in a group and I didn't want to break into the group. It felt weird. So I would just kind of drop my daughter and go. And luckily one of them, because they were all like, when they eventually asked me out for coffee, because one of them thought that I may just be shy, they were like, oh, we just thought you were a bit of a bitch, to be honest, which is fine. But I was shocked. I had no idea that was the vibe I was giving out. But, and I'm wondering how many people out there would be exactly the same. Like they just, if you don't allow yourself to be emotionally vulnerable in some respect or be brave enough to go into a situation where people already know each other and you don't know anybody yet. That takes a little bit of courage. If I hadn't said yes to that coffee date or whatever, I would not have met that group of women who are still my friends today. And to be honest, if I hadn't been brave enough to make friends with them and realize I could be a good friend and be a good person to be friends with, I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to step into our community that we have, because it would just have been too far of a stretch for me.
Yeah. I think for me, I was in a place because I was 5 weeks postpartum. My family had come out to visit when I had Kinsley, but then had left. I was the first one of all my friends to have a baby out here and even back home. Everything was very new for me and I felt very alone. And I think that loneliness, I think, is what allowed me to step into our community. Because yeah, looking at all these people, I would have been like, absolutely not. And even still, it still took me time. Like I remember I didn't get on any calls for a long time. I didn't like go to any meetups with everyone. It took me a really long time. I remember the first one I went to, I was stressing and I brought Kinsley with me and I was called, she'll just be my excuse if I have to leave or if it just gets too awkward.
Was your shield.
Yeah, literally. It was like, just talk to the baby. I'm just here.
And Karen, I mean, you moved from Norfolk Island, I guess, to Brisbane. Like that would have been a jump as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I have some really good examples of community and how they serve and support and how they completely destroy. and Norfolk is a perfect example of that as well. And interestingly, a realization only recently in the last couple of weeks around community. Like when I built my last business, my wellness business on Norfolk Island, beautiful, amazing product, working really hard, invested a ton of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars into the business. The whole thing was just massive. And from my mind and excitement and passion for what I was doing. I thought everyone's going to get on board with this. It's such an amazing product, and it's really going to support the growth of the island and put us on the map for health and wellness. And the community, or the wellness community over there, was like, fear-based, alert. And the language that was used around that was, the pie isn't big enough. And you and Brett, who was my husband at the time, you already have your own businesses, and you have this secure income, and you're taking our pie. So you need to stop. And not only did it get to that, but they also then petitioned government and actively set about shutting us down, which they did eventually, and ended up becoming bankrupt and losing everything. Like, it was it was a very interesting space to be in, to see this absolutely fear-driven, horrible gang of people, women particularly, who were just determined to shut us down because they were so fearful of losing everything. Conversely, our community, which is the best, are all about lifting you up and making you the best version of yourself. And it's not about, oh, you're bigger than me, so I need to bring you down, or, oh, the pie's not big enough, so I need to, shut you down because you'll keep, posing a risk to my health. It's all about how can we make you better, and how can we support you, and how can we lift you up. I actually had even another example because I'm obviously a colon hydrotherapist, and I manage a clinic, and there's a lady who manages the closest clinic to us in the next suburb. So direct competition, right? And we were having a chat one day a couple of months ago, and she's like, I'll tell you whatever you need to know. She's like, what do you need to know? Let's share. She goes, because everyone's got an ass. And I'm like, yes.
She sounds awesome.
Yes. And I'm like, and at the end of the day, with what we do and supporting people with their health, everybody needs health. And there are more than enough people for us to serve and support. So why are we fighting? And that's the beautiful thing, is we don't have to. We don't have to. We just get to love each other and support each other and lift each other up. And that's something that I'm incredibly grateful for. It's amazing. But coming to Australia, going back to your question, Yvette, mum, 4 kids, had gone from crazy busy life with multiple things going on to just how do I do this? How do I make friends? And it comes back to how you identify yourself too. So at that stage, I was mum, 4 young kids, and one kid plays hockey, one kid plays rugby, and so you kind of, who's another mum that has kids that do this? Who's another, you know what I mean? So you kind of attracted to people who have similar things going on. And I still
scoping out the mums on the sideline,
yeah.
Oh, could you be my friend?
Yeah, exactly. But you kind of pretty quickly work out, though, when you go and do things with people, or when you share things like what we're doing now, like what we're doing with our business as an example. Sometimes those other people that were my friends, if I share things with them, they shut it down completely, not open to it. And it's like, okay, cool. I still love you. I still think you're an amazing human, but you're not my tribe. And that's okay.
Yeah. Different tribe.
Different tribe. But I think for me, one of the things that I've learned over time is I just want to be around the people that you can have these open conversations, and it's all about loving and supporting. It's not about shutting down, and you can have difference of opinions and different views, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think exactly. That's super important. And I know we don't have the same opinions on certain things. And I mean, I guess even within my family, we'd have vastly different opinions on certain things. And it's just, I guess, accepting people for who they are and making sure that the positives in that relationship outweigh the negatives, or that you can live with them. And I guess that's true for anybody who's looking to join a community, whatever it might be, that you don't have to sacrifice your identity to be part of that community or be anything other than who you are. And that doesn't matter if it's a general community group, or if it's a church, or if it's a business organization, or some other sort of skills-based thing, or a sports team. Doesn't matter. If you're expected to not be who you are or be something other than you are, I would be hesitant, because I have some quirks and I know that I'm accepted for them. And I guess there's few spaces where you get to feel like that. And I think once you find a community that knows all your weirdnesses and knows you're good and knows you're bad, you guys have seen me top of the world doing great. You've also seen me not so great, depending what's happening. And there's no judgment for any of that. It's just support.
Yeah. And just that where you feel like you can be yourself in that group. And it does, and it takes time. It takes time and a little bit of trial and error sometimes. And it is hard, but it's totally worth it once you do kind of find that group, whether they're big or small. It doesn't need to be this huge group of friends, which is kind of what I always relate it back to. It's like, oh, I'm not in the popular group at school, or I'm not in the, I was athletic, so I knew lots of people, but I wasn't the cool kid. You want to be part of the cool group. Now, I don't know if it's just I'm older. I would rather have 5 close friends than 30 friends where I don't feel like myself.
Where you're not sure when you leave the room what everyone's going to say. We think you're pretty cool.
Okay, sweet.
Oh, there's some cool Jess.
You're pretty cool to us.
You have to say that. We're recording a podcast.
No, we could say other stuff too. Yeah, speak the truth, Jess.
Wait until you're on quiet maternity leave with the new baby. We're going to be that Jess.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No.
Thank goodness she's gone.
No, we would not. Oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I guess as an adult, it's just really where to start looking. You know, for me, starting a business was not the place where I thought I would find my friends at all. And it took a little while for me. And I think that's a lesson too, is that I immediately felt that the people in the group were different. There was something different about them. Everybody was very emotionally open. Everybody was really happy. So I felt that there was something different about the group, but I didn't immediately feel part of it. And so I think that's a lesson for some people, that you need to give yourself a little bit of time. You know, friendships take time because everybody's thinking about if things are going to work, and everybody's kind of feeling each other out. And especially if you're going into a group that's already established, I would say try and be a little resilient. Realize that you're not going to walk in and immediately find your best friend on the first day. You might, and that's great. I was incredibly lucky to, at my very first event, be sitting next to someone who I count as one of my closest friends now. And so I was lucky that happened, but it's not always that way. And that's reasonable. Like that's how it's going to be, no matter where you go. It's just to give yourself a little bit of time to sit with it and keep kind of going back. If you think it's the right place for you and think the people are the right people, even if you don't feel quite comfortable just yet that, you know, you fit in, give it a minute and see how you go first before you make a full decision.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the key things is common interest too, right? So things that you're passionate about, so you can have conversations and you can just open up and be yourself, is really important. One of my friends I had caught up with last night, and she's just going through a separation with her husband, and you know, now she's doing the week around kid thing. And this is that thing too, like when you go through that relationship breakdown and your whole identity changes from being somebody's wife or partner and so-and-so's mother, and then you have, you know, 1 week with you being full-time crazy busy mama, and then the next week with radio silence, it's just you, and oh my God, I've been doing this for 15 years. So now there's this whole space around you to come back and find out who your identity is. So one of the conversations that I was having with her was around ways that she could then start to tap back into herself. So, you know, there are apps, as an example, like Meetup, where you can find Latin dancing and, you know, people who do Latin dancing, and go and try that. See if you love it. If it's awesome, keep doing it. If it sucks, don't do it anymore. Jewelry making, find that, try it, you know, like it's actually a really good opportunity to go and start to rediscover yourself. And the good thing about that is they kind of come with ready-made communities, or you can start to establish your own community around that as well.
A good point, because I know when I got divorced, I had changed during the course of that relationship, and I had no idea who I was at that point, not a clue. Yeah. And I had been disconnected from a lot of people during the course of that marriage. And so when I came out of it, I pretty much had no friends, because I think in trying to protect myself and people from what was going on, I had cut everybody off. And I think for a lot of women you're right, Karen, coming out of a marriage, you're like, oh, wait, who am I? What am I actually interested in? Because I'm pretty sure it's not, you know, cooking at home while my husband watches rugby. What do I like doing when there isn't that? You know, and the same thing for women when the kids leave home. Marriage might be great, but your kids have left and your whole life has been around your kids' sport and carrying them here and there. And taxi driver. And for me, it was basketball around the clock. And suddenly you have all this time on your hands and you don't know what you're really interested in, or you have no hobbies, or you have no passion. So give it a few different things a try. Who knows what it could be? And for everybody, it's different. You know, for a lot of my family, they do a lot of climbing. But my sister, for example, didn't get involved in climbing until she was 30, maybe. And she only went along because my brother is an avid climber and was like, hey, come with me. Because she had moved from Townsville back to Brisbane and was kind of trying to reconnect around what she was interested in here when she wasn't being an academic in Townsville. And since then, she's now moved to New Zealand, but that has become a new community for her to look for now. So she now does adventure races and climbing and mountain biking, and again, finding a new community around and yachting, around the activities that she likes to do. My eldest daughter, she moved schools very late. So she was basically in the second last year of school. And at the previous school she was at, she'd been there since she was like 2. She knew everybody knew her. So she was suddenly going to a new school. And I think what she did was pretty smart. She just signed up for every single sport that was available. And so where she wasn't meeting kids in class, she was meeting them at training or sports fields. And for me, same thing. We'd been at that same school, our family, for 22 years across the various, kids, my brother and my sister and my children. And I wasn't involved in anything at the old school. But at the new school, somebody asked me to be president of the sports supporters group. And I said yes, just so that I could meet people. And again, that's become like a real driving force for me around that particular group at our school, to make sure that people feel like they're part of a community, because it's so hard to do so otherwise, especially now with the COVID, throw your kids out the door and speed away, like you can't go into the schools anymore. That makes it even harder for parents.
Yeah, we are lucky that we're here because, like my sister was saying the same thing. Just she just hasn't spoken to an adult really in so long, being over in Canada. She's got 5 kids now. They're all at home. She's trying to homeschool the one. You don't really get that chance all of a sudden to have a normal conversation and know who you are. Like, it's hard enough being a mom and trying to figure out, like, okay, I got all these kids and I want to have my own identity, my own life too. And now here's COVID and I'm locked in my house, and I can't even meet people at the grocery store because we all have to stay away from each other and wear masks for the last year and a bit.
There's definitely challenges around COVID and connecting.
Yeah. And I think so many of our kids too are struggling with that. So some things that have kind of become an issue, around the whole lack of community has really spiked all sorts of things. And I was recently speaking to a friend whose 14-year-old is going through massive crisis right now, because her whole identity was around the sport that she did. And they're in Victoria. And so they haven't been able to do that sport. And her whole identity has been based for most of her life around that one thing that she's really good at. And that she, that's where her friends are. That's where her community is. And she hasn't been able to do that. And I think so many of our kids are now struggling with, anxiety and depression and trying to then reform those communities, I guess, online. And I saw that for a little while with our little one, Savannah, when they were in lockdown for a short period of time. Suddenly all the kids are all playing online, which she never did before. And we would never allow her to before, but suddenly that's where her entire friendship group was. And so that's become something, I know we spoke about that earlier with Kate in one of the previous episodes, but something that we've had to manage for her is that increased time in the online space. And so I would really encourage people too, is if you are looking to find a community, I think one of the things to try and do, if it's possible in your area, is to just get out. If you're really feeling lonely, just start by at least getting out. And it doesn't matter if it's just going to your local coffee shop or, going for a walk down to the park or whatever it is, but don't just sit at home. Find a way to be around people if that's going to be your first step.
Yep. And that can be kind of terrifying for people if they have any sort of level of anxiety or stress around actually interacting with people, particularly if they're not used to it, and particularly post-COVID. You imagine people who have actually any level of anxiety around social interaction, and then they've been locked away for COVID, so they don't have to physically do it, and then the whole world opens up again and they're like, oh, I kind of like this space of living away. But even I believe that there is a community for everybody. And I don't think it necessarily has to just be one community. It's just about identifying the things in yourself that you love to do and finding people that love the same thing. And there's somebody for everybody, and there's a community for everybody too. So just if you are feeling lonely or lost, reach out, find somebody who loves what you love and just talk about that initially and then see where that grows.
And like what you were saying too, if the interaction with people is scary, or like going to a meetup is scary, start online then. Search Facebook for different groups and chat with people that way. And then you build the friendship and you feel a bit more close and connected with people. And then maybe you can plan to go do a meetup or something like that when you've kind of built that friendship a little bit more. But yeah, like that last weekend when we all got together, it's just, this is awesome that we get to do stuff online together, but just being in person, it's just so different. Like it is, once you kind of find your tribe and you actually get to be together in the same room, talking about the things that you like, sharing food, like, yeah, there really is, I don't think, any greater thing for like your mental health.
Playing dodgy games, Yvette.
And being amazing at them. Do you want to talk about that, Karen? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah. I want to know how you won.
Because I'm hilarious. We were playing, what's it called? Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah.
Cards Against Humanity. I have never played Cards Against Humanity before. I was shocked, let me tell you, by Cards Against Humanity. And my 20-year-old daughter was playing with us. And so...
And she didn't think you were going to play.
She did not think I was going to play, and she did not think I was going to win. But shabam, take that. That's what happens. Your mother is never too old to surprise you. Yarly, if you're out there listening.
That's the thing.
But I had to say a lot of things that I hope I will never have to say again. I had to hear a lot of things that I hope I'll never have to hear again.
Yes.
But I mean, if I was going to play it, at least I won, like, yeah, I'm not competitive or anything.
Right. Yeah. Go big or go home.
I'll go home.
Oh, here's the thing, right? We played in a safe space too. So again, coming back to community, like there's no judgment. It's just like, all right, this is the game. Let's do it.
Well, and so we did. Gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Kiara was like, hey, should we get that game for home? I was like, we are never, ever getting that game for home. That is not a thing that's going to happen. Oh, my God. It was fun, though. It was super fun just to hang out and be together. And, yeah, I can't wait to do it again. And I think we're lucky, too, that we get to hang out in between because we're close enough as well to be able to do that. But, we see each other. I mean, outside of our podcast, we still see each other a couple of times a week, and we speak pretty much every day online. And I feel incredibly blessed that we're able to do that. And I think if you're out there and you are someone who is looking for a community that is like-minded, that cares about health and wellness, that can be the community for you, that doesn't expect you to be anything other than what you are and will accept you for that, whether it is an introvert like me who has slowly been coaxed out of her shell reluctantly, or if you are an extrovert, it doesn't matter who you are. We will love and respect you and support you. So feel free to reach out. You can hop onto our website, which is thetransformationproject.net.au, and you can reach out to us there, or you can find any of us on Facebook or Instagram just with our names. And we'd love to chat and welcome you into our Transformation Project community, because we are not just a podcast, we are a community as well. You can also find us on Facebook, the Transformation Project community. So feel free to reach out. I would hate for anybody to be out there feeling lonely, where we could make you feel better and part of a greater tribe. And it doesn't matter where in the world that you are, you can still connect with us because we're all over the place.
That is the good thing of social media. Yep.
For sure. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. As usual, we would love to hear your feedback. We would love to have any topics that you would want us to cover, or anything else you'd like to say. Please feel free to reach out. Share this podcast with a friend. Subscribe. Give us a review. We would love to hear about it. And we will talk to you next time.